You are listening to the Home Service Business Success Show. We have been accelerating the path of success for home service companies since 2011.
He said something to me years ago that has stuck with me forever, and it's just simple. There's no place for ego in business.
This seems like a recipe for success where business meets the industry.
If you don't take care of your people, you're not going to have much in this industry.
Grow your people, grow your No, what was this is going to be funny. We're going to get a blooper out of this.
When you're in the people business,
There
you're
it
in the
is.
profit business.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to Home Service Business Success Show. I'm your host, Kenny Chapman, along with co-host Chris Crew. And today we've got a super, super awesome treat for you. We have actually one of our own in our tribe. And this podcast is not about blue collar. It's about you growing your home service business. But today we have Kelton Balka from Tennessee Standard in Knoxville, Tennessee, has so kind to spend some time with us and share of today's episode, which happens to be when you're in the people business, you're in the profit business. And we just want to jump in and learn more about you and your situation and how you operate, Kelton. And profitability is a byproduct, as we all know. And when you focus on profit, you miss so many steps. But as we learn more about you, and as obviously you've been a dedicated blue collar member for years now, and you're an implementer is what we've learned. And so we get to see incredible insights and wisdom, and let's have some fun, boys. Chris, what do you got,
Yeah.
Brian?
No, good to be here. Not only a little bit of a shameless plug, he happens to be located in Knoxville, Tennessee. Go Vols. That's about all I got for that introduction on that one. No, Kelton, good to have you, man. We're super excited. I don't want to tell your story, but I'm going to go back to when I first met you. You were running as a plumber and kind of working for another business, and those things kind of evolved into ownership of Tennessee Standard. Why don't you tell our listeners exactly how you got in the industry? Because I think it's a very exciting story for those that are listening to hear.
Yeah, I'd love to. And thank you guys so much for the invitation. I love to spend some time hanging out with you two for sure. But let's jump into it. So I am actually a fifth generation plumber. The plumbers go back on, five. The plumbers
Man.
go back, it's on my mother's side of the family. So when I was 13 years old, my summer job was running around to job sites with my uncle, who took me along, and I started in new construction because that was the type of shop he was running back then. And so every summer through high school, I would do plumbing, right? And so I actually applied myself, and I got my state license in Tennessee. It's called a limited license plumber. It's basically the equivalent of a journeyman. I got that when I was 18 years old, before I went to college, or right when I had started college. And I went to school to get a degree in finance because my family said, including the 4 generations of plumbers, said that you definitely don't want to get into plumbing because there's no money in it.
What? Hold on. Time out. I'm going to ask this question. How does 4 generations of plumbers before you tell you there's no money in plumbing? So did you set out to prove them wrong? Is that what's going on here?
I definitely didn't set out to prove them wrong. My father was an accountant and a finance major and a certified management accountant, but you know, I guess they didn't see it at that point, right?
Right.
And so I also, well, what happened was I went to school, and I worked very hard to get my degree for 4 years. And about halfway through, because I kept working the summers as plumbing, right? But at that point, plumbing was just a way that I earned more than the next kid during summer, right?
Sure.
Heck yeah.
And so halfway through, I'm sitting in these business classes as we get through kind of the prerequisite stuff and all the, stuff that everybody has to do. We get to have some actual business classes. I'm sitting there, and everything they talk about, I'm like, man, I think I can see this in the context of a plumbing business. And I just started through that lens. And then I started raising my hand and asking questions that were like, hey, so, my uncle has this plumbing business that I work in, and asking questions through that. And so, I'm a big believer of, if you're gonna go to school, not everybody needs to, but if you're gonna, have an idea of the path that you want to take it to, because then you get to do school through that lens, right?
Yeah.
Because we know school can be a great thing, and it can also be a huge waste of time and money, right? It
Sure.
can go
Sure.
either way, how you're going to use it.
Yeah.
So, halfway through was when I'm like, dude, I'm going all in on plumbing. I'm going to combine like knowing something about business and being really good at plumbing. I'm going to combine that because I just saw a lot of operators out there that were one or the other. You know, you see the business guys on the private equity side that can't relate to our industry and the culture. And then you see all the guys that were technicians and, as Michael Gerber says, had an entrepreneurial seizure and decided, hey, if I do this myself, I can just
Yep.
take 100% of that check to the bank. Yeah,
All right.
to anybody and set my own schedule and all the silly stuff that they think at that time, right? When they had their entrepreneurial seizure. So I just said, hey, I'm gonna combine these. I'm going all in. And that's what I finished out my schooling with that mindset. Graduated, jumped into my uncle's plumbing company that had been a 1 to 1.5 truck operation for a decade. That's all it had been. It was 2 trucks in the summer when I hopped in one, and then one truck the other time,
Right.
okay?
Right.
And so I jumped into that and I spent 2.5 years with him. Very grateful for him because he really let me, cut my teeth utilizing really his risk. He let me just jump in and just take charge. Hey, I'm taking charge of the accounting. All right,
Yeah.
cool. Hey, I'm taking charge of the marketing. This is all broken. This is all messed up.
Right.
And I would work just around the clock because I wasn't married at the time, and so I would run 8 to 10 hours of service calls and then come back and work on the books or
Yeah.
mark till 10 o'clock at night, and I just did this. It's just a little bit of, I have the natural bent being hardwired like that as a hard worker. I learned that work ethic from my family, and so um, in 2.5 years, we were able to get past what I call the hardest hump in business, which is from, zero, which or one truck would be about back then about 250,000 to the year that I left. I believe it was 1.2 million or something like that we had done. Had about 4 trucks rolling. We're starting to look and feel like a business. We had separate visions for where the company wanted to go, and um, it was the right time to part ways, right? So, left him with the things that we had built together and started Tennessee Standard Plumbing as me, my brother-in-law, who was my mobile CSR because he rode in the truck with me and answered the phones and then helped on the jobs.
Great job, Bobby. Shout
Yeah,
out to Bobby.
Bobby, good times. We still have so many inside jokes from the, 12 months that we were riding together. But anyway, and so January 1, 2020, that's when it launched.
Awesome.
amazing.
Could I ask this seems like a recipe for success where business meets the industry, right?
Mhm.
Someone that comes into the industry that's very passionate about the industry, yet very passionate about the business side. And when you put those two pieces together, it's a recipe for what you're living right now. Tell us a little bit about Tennessee Standard.
Our mission statement sums up a lot of it. Okay, so our mission statement is to become the number one plumbing home services company in the greater Knoxville area to take the power out of the hands of the crooked contractors, provide tradesmen a way to create wealth for their family and love what they do, and be a light in the community to the glory of God. That's our mission statement. And it really sums up all the motivations.
Powerful.
Mm,
Powerful.
man.
Get that, ladies and gentlemen, as you hear that, you might even want to press rewind and listen to that again, because so many mission statements, as we know, are written out of a book or context, or this needs to be there, that needs to be there. Knowing Kelton at the level that we do, it's all in there. And when you said that that really is behind that motivation, I think that you can't accomplish that mission without having blended these two things that make you unique, which is having the finance side and the business mindset along with the plumbing side and making that happen. And for for many years in the industry, we saw some of the fastest growing companies would be people that bought a business that were a CPA. Let's go before this last round of private equity roll up. A CPA has an exit or does something. Oh, I'm going to buy a little contracting business, and then they scale. And so, but to your point, having the ability to blend together and know the culture, because when we're talking about if you're in the people business, you're in the profit business, that kind of drops down. And I've said for years, I believe that people should be on the balance sheet. Like we want to put assets on the balance sheet. Where do they show up? How do we make that happen? And so
Right.
intrinsically, you're such a testimony of that. Now, how do you blend that where you're both, you're this hybrid, which I believe is the unique focus, but does one win out a little more than another when it comes to, okay, I'm a great plumber, but I really need to be a great business person? Like, how do you manage that? Were you able to release any ego of I'm the best plumber in the world, or are you still like, no, I can outplumb everybody in my company, but I'm focused on the marketing plan or whatever it is?
Great question. I have another uncle that is um, in the C-suite of a Fortune 100 company, and he said something to me years ago that has stuck with me forever, and it's just simple. There's no place for ego in business.
Write that down, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, write that down. There's no place for ego in business. Didn't mean to interrupt you, brother. Keep going.
There's no place for ego in business. There's no place for it in the rest of life when we let, you know, ego. And I know you talk a lot about ego and super ego, but when we're talking about, it in the context of pride and wanting to be better than other people. And so when we invite that in, it just screws a lot of stuff up, and part of the mission statement is that we want to create a way for tradesmen to create wealth for their families and love what they do. And there's a lot of mismanaged shops out there. And there's a lot of shops where they treat people very poorly. And I think it all goes back to the egos and the insecurities of the people that are leaders in those places.
Yes.
So for me, unfortunately, I'm still one of the best plumbers in my shop. It's not a goal. I talk about a lot where, you know, it it does help with the people development side on the operations. But as I delegate and elevate, um, and I have to train up other people to be hopefully better than I am in the position that I am, then those skills don't do me any good. They don't really grow with me and scale with me. Now, currently, I'm really involved in the install department and working on developing people there. So it is helpful in some aspects there. But really, the areas of growth for me has been the marketing and the finance, and then most recently, the people development, developing leaders, developing mid-level managers. We are in an industry where we are selling labor, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what it's all about. It's a service industry. So who does the labor? People. And if you don't take care of your people, you're not gonna have much in this industry. And I think when you let the numbers on the financials and they don't balance with the relationships that you develop with the people, you're gonna run into a lot of problems. And so I am very passionate about balancing the two.
Would you allow me, Kelton, without getting really personal? You've shared some very personal insights to it. For our listeners, I think that they need to hear this. When you go from a company that nets 15.78 to the bottom line, when you go back and look at your business as a startup, let's just call it your first year in business, we put almost 16 points to the bottom line. The second year, 10.27, and then all of a sudden a dip to 2.26. I want to talk about that for a minute because I think there's some gold that we could extract, but then rebounding next year, going another 2% net profit to a 14.66, and just just last year closing out 22.82% net profit. When you're in the people business, you're in the profit business. Tell us a little bit about the ebbs and flows of profitability of your business.
I will say this, when you start a business, one of the most important things you can do is create a financial model, which is basically just a very big spreadsheet that tries to show, hey, if I sell this much goods or services at this number and this is going to be my overhead, what will I get at the bottom? And playing and massaging those numbers so that you're actually priced correctly, that was the biggest thing that my finance degree actually really helped me with.
Yes.
That's the one thing that where it really did give me a tangible benefit, advantage, whatever you want to call it, because I learned to not make a decision in hope. I make a decision and I know what needs to be delivered to make that the right decision.
Mm.
So that is the heart of a lot of it, or that's the starting place on it then, right? Because what happens is people make bad decisions and then they don't know what the real problem is. And so then they're just looking at maybe their employees, their team members, like, now I'm paying him too much, or
Mhm.
man, we need to tighten things up, less straw, more bricks, we need to there's problem instead of there's actually something broken high level that we need to fix.
Mm.
The other thing that I would say is over time, you'll notice that in the years that we've scaled more, and I would encourage you to look at the net operating income, because the net profit line at the bottom does have depreciation and things that's like tax adjustments taken out there. So if you look at net operating income, and you may have been on that line, year one, 27%, year two, 25%, year three, 20%, year four, we dipped down, right, to 13.16. But that year, what happened? We went from 3 million to 6 million in top line.
Time out. Time out. So you doubled the business, but yet maintained profitability that allowed you to continue to invest and grow. Tell us a little bit about your strategy. Here's the point. You're talking to right now, you're hearing from a very young, aggressive entrepreneur who's built a tremendous brand and is doing so at a strong profitability, right?
Profitability with it. Yes.
Yeah, profitability with it. So tell us a little bit about your thought process around this whole profitability and scaling. How do you double the business and yet maintain profitability?
Well, I was disappointed because our profitability dropped quite a bit there in that year. But we're thankful for the profit that we did have. It goes back to um, it goes back to going to a financial model
Yeah.
and saying, hey, if we're going to go from 3 million to 6 million, what would we need to change
Mm,
to still have some profitability, But
right.
then, back to the main point of the podcast is you don't get that $3 to $6 million jump without investing in your people.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that allowed us to go from 3 to 6 and still maintain profit is the fact that it was all the investment that we had done in the people the years prior.
Yes.
Could you talk a little bit about some of the investments when you because I'm consuming this podcast right now, and I'm like, what are you talking about investing into my people? Does that mean buy them new trucks, buy them new tools? What do you mean, Kelton, when you say invest into your people?
So several different things. For one, when I'm building a financial model, I like it when my percentage for direct labor is a point or two higher than what's considered industry healthy. I like
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
because I know that I'm giving everything that I can to them.
Mm,
Number two, we meet every single day. We train every single day. Or let me say this, we train 4 days a week at Tennessee Standard. So the amount of pre- of time and energy that goes into actually training to help them become better at their jobs so they can make more money so they can create wealth for their families and love what they do, right?
Yes.
Um, that's a huge time investment. That's stuff where most people want to take a shortcut and they say, "Man, no, I just want to hire somebody with the talent and not invest in people and skill people up." I mean, the best thing ever is when I find some humble, hardworking kid that just isn't on a good career path, didn't go to school, doesn't want to go to school, but wants a way to make it. We come in and make them great and watch the amount of money that they make and watch them thrive in life, right? So, investing in people through training with, specifically for us, the blue collar success group, right? We pay to have our coach come to town multiple times a year and do training. We fly people to Tampa and to Phoenix to sit in those trainings, the management trainings, the sales trainings, the tech trainings, all of it. So actually paid training, that's a very tangible investment. And then the other uh, two big investments in our people is we actually do invest really, really heavily in the best equipment because I believe that changes your quality of life at a workplace. And also, I'm a sucker because I'm a blue collar guy, so I like fancy tools, right? I have to take care of those and make sure that they're taking care of them as well. And then the last big way that we invest in our people is through the culture, doing things that cost some money to make a good culture. The weather got really cold here in Knoxville, Tennessee, and we uh, thought about this, brought it up in a meeting, and we just took receipt of a hot dog roller like you'd find at a gas station that we put like breakfast foods on, egg rolls, hot dogs, sausages, all that. They come in the morning and those babies are just over there rocking, loving life.
I love it.
In Knoxville, would that be the equivalent of a quick trip or a racetrack?
Ah, well, and not I would okay. First, it would be Waggles, right?
Okay,
Oh, okay.
I would
there you
say
go.
Quick Trip. That fits the bill
There
too.
you go. So I think, I think what I'm hearing is a balance of emotion. And I don't want to miss something you said a little while ago when you said delegate and elevate. And that's something that is near and dear to us, and we talk about that a lot because I think too often delegation is get all this junk off my plate. I don't want to do and I'm too good for this. We already touched on removing ego. And so you're actually elevating people when you're investing certainly in skills and certainly in tools and certainly in culture. You're also up leveling them in their human beingness and being able to be fulfilled and learn and grow. And I want everybody to make sure you're hearing you can be profitable while doubling down on your people. And what I know from being a finance based operator, the cool thing I would assume is when you build a financial model, there's no emotion involved because it's just spreadsheets and it's just saying if this then that, and there's mental freedom in that. Then, however, there comes the emotion, and we go all the way back to when I first went to upfront pricing in 1998, dating myself a little bit. I ran the model. I'm not a finance guy. I ran the number and went, "Oh, we can't get that. There's no way." And all this emotion comes in, and I start justifying it down, like so many tradespeople have for generations now. And so when we talk about people development, there's a major emotional component. When we talk about finance, there's more of a black and white, less emotion. How do you blend those two so brilliantly, brother, as you continue to scale this company?
Well, thank you for saying that. Um, the financial model is just math, you know?
Mm,
It's just a math equation. And so the people or the person at the top is responsible to make sure that the math equation that governs that business is healthy or nobody's safe in the business, right?
ooh,
So that's
yeah.
their responsibility. And then once you actually jump into the operations and, rolling out that math equation and turn it into real life, does that person care about people.
Hmm.
That's to care about people.
Yes. Ooh.
And at Tennessee Standard, I care about people and my leaders care about people. And
Well, it goes back to this, Kenny, when like attracts like.
Yes.
So Kelton is projecting out into his business his mission statement, and he's going to attract the people that resonates with. So now what he's done is, because he has become vulnerable by putting himself out there of, this is who I am,
Mm.
this is how I operate, he attracts the people that get behind that. There's so much power in that to build a business. And the challenge is, some operators don't want to get vulnerable. So I didn't mean to interrupt. I just think sometimes we get hung up in the, I can't be vulnerable, because if they know who I am, will they like me? Will they appreciate me? And it sounds like you built a team of people that are just pro Tennessee Standard.
Well, and with the, my success law number one is authentic abundance, right? And so there's that authenticity of, I really care about you, but hang on, wait. In your mission statement of having a place where team members can get wealthy in the blue collar world and love what they do, that is massive. And the
yeah,
challenge, ladies and gentlemen, many of you, I want you to check yourself right now as a listener. If you're an owner and you don't love what you do, you better look in the mirror and you better start asking some different questions. Because I've said it for years, it doesn't get any better than your chair. And if you don't like where you're at and you don't like what you do, how is a young apprentice, somebody that's shifting careers, shifting their, putting their faith in you as a leader, going to love what they do? That's one of the things that just really resonates for me with you, Kelton, is that there's that authentic truth of, I want you to be wealthy and I want you to really love what you do. And guess what? If we all do that together, then Tennessee Standard's going to win. And we have all these, triple wins thrown around, and the team and the company and all this stuff just gets thrown around, and you're actually doing it and you're getting the result. And I really want our listeners, whether you're watching this or listening, which you ought to go check out the YouTube, because it's pretty cool seeing all three of us hanging out here together today. But regardless, putting your money where your mouth is, so to speak, putting your implementation where your emotion is, so to speak. It's rare. I'll jump off my little soapbox, but you said something about, operators and you want that culture where people can come and thrive. And I've been saying for, 15 years at least, that it's not that we have a lack of skilled labor in the trades. It's that there's an overabundance of bad ownership in the trades. And I don't mean that in a negative or I'm casting stones kind of a way. I'm just calling what I see. And that is, when you have owners like Kelton that are dialed in personally, he knows who he is from an ethics standpoint, integrity, his faith. He knows exactly who he is, so he gets to show up and be that every day. Let that land, and that takes you a long way. Not without tons of hard work and some sleepless nights and plenty of grind, I'm sure, with hustle being one of the core values of Tennessee Standard. But just really, really cool to see, brother.
well, think about this too, guys. The number one motivation for somebody starting a trade business is what we were talking about just before the show, where they say, man, I'm the best at this. And if I just did it all, if I just started my own business, then I wouldn't have to answer to anybody. And I could just make all the money myself, make way more money, and set my own schedule and just take the checks to the bank, and then I just hire some scrubs to do the dirty work. And I'm telling you, that's what goes through
Yeah.
most people's minds. It could not be farther from the truth.
Mm,
It's an entrepreneurial seizure, like Michael
yes.
Gerber
Yeah.
says. And what happens is, if those are your motivations, then as soon as things get tough, which by the way is pretty dang
They
fast,
will. That's right.
okay? Soon as things get tough, you're ticked off. You're like, this is not the dream. This is not what I signed up for. Why are all these people giving me headaches and problems. I don't want to invest in these people. These people are giving me what I need. And the initial motivations can very often be selfish. And when they are, you're going to struggle with having the patience and the focus and the clarity that you need to get through to the next level. And I watched a lot of people be like that. And I can honestly say that none of those stereotypical motivations were my motivations when starting Tennessee Standard. And because I have been blessed to have the opportunity to help a relative grow their business, I was already accustomed to what the a lot of the challenges and the struggles and the speed bumps were going to be. And that really helped me to take it in stride and not lose my mind.
Well, so when we talk about being a people business and being a profit business, a lot of people might confuse the fact that if I invest in people, my people will leave. What are your thoughts around that, Kelton? Like you've heavily invested in them. What's going on at Tennessee Standard today?
First of all, I can completely relate with that fear because I still have that fear from time to time.
Sure.
And it's a combination of a couple things. If you don't invest in them, they're definitely going to leave too.
Yeah.
If you do invest in them, fewer are going to leave. But you got to invest in them and you got to give them a reason to stay on top of that. You got to skill them up and you got to give them a reason to stay on top of that. And this is going back to the mathematical side of my brain. I've learned in the last couple years, losing some key people to some, allegedly monster deals and contracts because people are trying to poach my talent a lot. You got to systematically invest in people. You got to make investing in people and skilling people up a process-based thing. It comes from a heart of care, and then it also comes from a place of this is the process, and we're going to trust the process because then when one person that you've invested in leaves, if that's the only person you've invested in, you're toast. So you got to invest in people at scale.
So I'm hearing you say don't throw money at the problem. And I think that's where a lot of times people try to throw money at the problem to fix it. I heard you say a more of a systematic approach to invest in people. It's not just put money out there. It's like systematically I'm going to invest in these people. And I'm going to go back to, before we hopped on here, you talked about some of the struggles that you were going on right now with some mid-level management stuff. And then I'm going to remind you that you said your mission is to give tradesmen the opportunity to create wealth. And sometimes that might not be at Tennessee Standard. And I'm asking the question, how do you get okay with that?
Well, I struggle with it because I truly love each and every person that is a team member here at Tennessee Standard. And I show up for them and give it 100% for them each and every day. So I'm not going to lie. It really does tear me up when a person that I was close with in the business decides that they want to continue their career not at Tennessee Standard. It doesn't happen a ton at Tennessee Standard because we do have a good culture. We do have industry leading pay. We got a lot of great things going on, but when it does happen, it's really, really challenging for me. And so that has required me to grow up a little bit and realize that when it comes to promoting people, don't get emotionally attached to with an idea of who you want in that box. That's been one thing that I've had to we're going to keep this a little more mathematic. Because it's going to happen. Some people are going to leave, and that's just part of running a business and operating a business. So I got to be okay with that, or I can't function and I can't continue to delegate and elevate.
Well, and I think that's huge for you at 5 years in from a startup to where you are in such a quick period of time, and as a young entrepreneur to get to realize that and one of the things of being an entrepreneur for 32 years now or going close to, I mean, I've been in the game longer than you've been alive, I think, but I date myself again there. But the thing is, if you're playing a long game, you're going to go through these things. That one of the things that sets me free of of recessions. I'm playing a long game, so I know recessions are going to be part of it. There's going to be economic massive, like where things are just handed out, like in the 2020 world, and then there's going to be pullbacks and there's going to be inflation. That's part of what happens in life, right? So sometimes team members do come and go, and when you come from an agreement, it's this or better. One of my mantras is this or better. And so if something changes, that's where the faith kicks in, right? Because it's easy to have faith when everything's going your way and you're in the flow. But when there's a gap, when you're I talk about the monkeys we see when we're down in Costa Rica and you're swinging from one branch to the next, but you're in the middle of nowhere and you've let go of that branch. Sometimes people have taken that branch out of your hand and you haven't landed on the next one yet. That's where the faith's at. And when key team leaves or we have a bit of turnover, that's when we've really got to go, I know I'm going to land on that next branch and it's going to be like this or better. So my question is, are you playing a longer game, or are you scaling up to try to exit by the time you're, X amount of revenue or X amount of age, and you can defer the question if I'm getting too personal.
No, I love the question. This is what I do. I got a finance degree and I'm a fifth generation master plumber. And so the thought of actually selling is nowhere in my mind, other than I believe in the concept that you build a sellable business because that systematized, it's
Yes.
organized, it's thriving, and then you don't sell that,
Yeah.
So what I do see though, because I want to continue to delegate and elevate until I'm uh, you know, solely GM and then solely president and continue to move up. And what I would love to do is to give to the key leaders in my organization once we're at a certain size a deal where they get an equity cut. And
Yes.
those are the people that are over, maybe we have different branches, maybe we have different locations and things at that
Mhm.
point. And that would truly allow me to move on to uh, the next stage of my life, whatever that may be.
Yes.
I may always be involved in the day to day. You just don't know what life is going to be in 10 years. But I would love nothing more than to be able to reward the most key individuals in my organization with that as time goes on. And I think Chris and I have talked about this one-on-one before, but that's a actually viable option to be
Yes.
able to put people in place and know that good decisions are being made, even if your daily oversight is not in the
And
equation.
and ladies and gentlemen, let that land for a minute about, where you are in your own business and your own cycle and what your own vision is and where you're going. Because over the last 4 years or so, at the time we're recording that, there's been this massive intoxication with exiting. And people are exiting for various reasons, and some are going for the exact right reason of why they built it. And I see about one out of every 30 deals that I see, I go, yep, I totally get that. That one makes sense. And the rest of them, I'm scratching my head from a lack of clarity from an operator or somebody selling or what the case is. And so I just want our listeners to have a breath of fresh air of, there's been this collective agreement that if you're successful, you sell. And to be really successful in this space is when you join PE. And I'm not against private equity. I'm not against selling. That's not what I want this to be. I just want it to be that you walk in your own shoes. And when you know who you are and you know why you're doing what you do every day and you've got vision, then you get up and you go execute that every single day and you take a lot of the noise out. And it sounds like you've had that clarity of, when you said this is it's who I am, then it's what I do, is what you said. Has that helped you keep the noise out when I'm sure you get all the letters that everybody gets right now and has been getting of, we want to talk to you, and hey, and you're able to just throw it in the bin and keep on rolling?
Yeah, because I do get all those letters, but it just those mean absolutely nothing to me.
Yes.
I've got clarity on the vision. Another thing is my finance background helped me to think in terms of percentages and not dollars, and think in terms of a math equation. And so what you'll find is some leaders will stall out at a certain point because they're just having a certain dollar amount of money that flows through them in their organization, and they just can't, like, they're emotional about it, you
Yes.
know? Like, I'm no more emotional about we pay our Amex bill weekly,
Mm.
okay? I'm no more emotional about paying $100,000 a week Amex bill as I was when it was $5,000.
Yeah.
It's just
There's
percentages. I don't,
percentages. Yes.
and it helps me think in that way. So some people just, they build their business to a couple $1,000,000, and then somebody says, "Well, your business might be worth $5,000,000." And they're just, "What?" And they
Yeah.
just lose their mind, and I'm just not there, thankfully.
Yeah.
Can I ask a good perspective when you were sitting in class getting your accounting degree? Did you have any idea that it would be what it is today?
No. No, I didn't. I remember vividly right when I graduated. No, it was a little after. It was right after I started Tennessee Standard. My birthday's on July 4th. And we went out on the lake. We took a boat out. And so it was July. So we've been going for 6 months, and it was still a one truck operation, but we had just found our truck number 2 guy, right? And I remember on that boat, my father was out there. I was my wife, and I had one baby at the point at that time. We were going around Norris Lake, and I remember saying to my dad, "Do you think it would be possible to do $1,000,000 a month? Like, could you imagine? Like, we hit 1,000,000 last year. Do you think that that would even be possible?" And everybody that heard it on board was just like, "That." And I was just like, "Man, that's crazy. I wonder if that's even possible." And, January 2025, we just passed it.
There you go.
Congratulations,
I
brother.
love
Didn't
it.
But
Yeah,
I'm
that's
thankful, and I just wanna be a good steward of it.
yes.
No, and here's the thing for our listeners, don't get in the gap of like, I mean, you've heard Kelton's story from startup to $1,000,000 a month. And by the way, strong profitability. If I were to ask, what exactly would you consider to be a great profit margin, Kelton?
And obviously, this is industry specific always, but in the home services industry, I'd say 20. 20 is what you're looking for, because you would hope that you could invest your money somewhere else and get 10, and, 20 is really the target, and that's a very strong profit margin. We've hit it some years, and some years we haven't.
Mm. Yeah, that's it's awesome, man. I just, again, we're just so grateful to have you on the show, and more grateful than that to know you as a person, and the fact that, you've hung your hat with blue collar, and continue to implement and teach and impact our community in such a massive way. We're just, just overflowing with gratitude for you, and your implementation and what you stand for in the industry, because you're one of the ones that when this industry continues to evolve, as I believe there's a bit of a shift happening right now between white collar and blue collar is going to be where it's at for the next 50 years. And that's not just because I happen to be the CEO of the Blue Collar Success Group. It's happening, and we're seeing it, and having guys like you that bring both white collar into blue collar, because if we remove the labels, it's just being good stewards, good humans, good people, doing the very best we can with love in our hearts every day. And thank you so much for being on the show, brother. Anything parting words, Chris or Kelton?
Well, just once again, man, your passion, you ooze enthusiasm and passion, whether it's a phone call, a text message, a video, in person. I'm just super grateful to be able to know you as a person and have your story. And I know this for a fact. I know this for a fact. Your reach in this industry is just getting started, man.
That's a
Your
fact.
reach in this industry and making an impact is just getting started. And I'll tell you this, it's much bigger than Knoxville, Tennessee. It's much bigger than Tennessee Standard. It's your messaging and how you go about doing it. So super proud, man. Thank you so much for sharing your time today with us.
I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be on here. And if I had one closing statement, it would be to everybody out there listening, quit looking for shortcuts, put in the work, and do unto others as you would have them do unto you. That's what I got.
Boom. And if my mic wasn't on a stand here, I would drop it for you. So thank you so much, everybody. When you invest in people, or how did we say it? What's the grow your people, grow your No, what was this is going to be funny. We're going to get a blooper out of this.
When you're in the people business, you're in the profit business.
When you're in the people business, you're in the profit business. And we just got to hang with one of our boys and have some great time here together. Make sure you check the show notes, and thank you, everybody. Season 2 here with Kelton Balka, Tennessee Standard. Keep on scaling, brother. We're here. We got your back, man. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.